Well, good morning, everyone in Thailand. Although, let's see, how many people do we have? So far, about 42 and more coming in. So that would make about 97% in Canada, 95% and maybe 2% in America, and just 1 or 2 in Thailand. So good evening is what I should say. It's 7 a.m. here in Thailand, and I woke up about 45 minutes ago to take a pee in the middle of the night and realized, oh my goodness, I better get up. It's Mindfulness Society of Canada time. So thank you everybody for joining today, and thank you for joining me in my morning meditation. So today I'm going to take you through an insight meditation, which is a meditation that hopes to spawn vipassana insights. So that we know what we're doing. Just a little bit of theory at first. So there are all kinds of different insights you can have as you make your way through your life and through your journey through the world. But Vipassana insights are extremely specific. The insights that are on the path to liberation or on the path to freedom from suffering. Those insights are extremely specific. There are only very few types of insights that you can have that actually lead to a permanent reduction in suffering and complete liberation from suffering, that are on that path. Any other insights that you might have, we could call them maybe worldly insights that could be helpful in this life, but will most likely be forgotten at the end of this life and not remembered in the next. And also aren't really leading to any sort of real reduction in suffering or elimination from suffering. They might lead to temporarily feeling better, right? They could be helpful in sort of a more conventional sense rather than in an ultimate sense. So the insights are extremely specific when we're talking about vipassana insights, or ones that are leading us to the end of suffering. And those insights are specifically, very specifically, regarding basically one truth and then just 3 different angles that our mind can take regarding that truth. And so that one truth that these insights are regarding is the truth that whatever arises also falls away. That's the one truth that all these insights are regarding. Any insights about anything else, like, oh, that's why I do that. Or, oh, isn't that interesting how my mind does this or that, right? Those can be helpful, like, stepping stones. They can conventionally, they might lead to a real insight coming soon with regards to Vipassana, but those aren't the actual Vipassana insights that are, at least not yet, right? So it's all surrounding whatever arises also falls away. When the mind by itself sees that whatever arises also falls away, it can pick its own angle. So the angle might appear as something that is there, just disappears. And then the mind understands, oh, this happens with regards to everyone. This happens with regards to every phenomenon that arises. Right? It could see these things that arise and fall away. It could actually see within, deeply within. This takes a deeper quality of meditation. It can actually see within any particular phenomenon that's there and see that it has this contamination in it. And this contamination is that it's making it dissolve. So the mind sees that whatever phenomenon is there, let's say anger, at the time we don't really care what phenomenon it is. It's with respect to all phenomena. But it could be anger, it could be frustration, it could be impatience, whatever you have now. It could be happiness, intrigue, joy, whatever it might be. When it's there, it has a contaminant in it. And when you see that contaminant is just, it's the disintegration virus. That whatever is there is on its way out. So that's another way it can be seen. And then the third angle that can be taken when seeing the truth that everything arises also falls away can be the angle of seeing the truth of what's called the truth of non-self, which basically means that everything comes and falls out of its own causes. There isn't anybody doing it. There's nobody at the driver's seat for any natural phenomena that occur. And so it might be seen from that angle, that whatever comes up or whatever falls away, the identity or the sense of a person is eliminated, is seen as just a delusion. And then things just arise and fall on their own with no controller. And that's seeing it from the angle of non-self. And it doesn't matter which angle you see it from. It's all really the same truth. So in order to see or have these insights that are the most important insights that one can have, because little do we know, we're on a path to ending our suffering, whether we're going about it right or not. That's the game here. And when we need to see or have these insights, the mind has to be correctly prepared or developed in order to be able to see these insights. Because if you're just going to try to see these insights now without having done the right preparation, and this is leading to a meditation, all right, which helps us to prepare the mind. We're just trying to see these insights without the mind being properly prepared to do so. Then what we're going to see is just the results of our thoughts. Right? Because without proper preparation, we're totally immersed in thought forms. And so we're just going to be thinking that things are impermanent, or thinking maybe there isn't a self, right? Or we might start to get a little sense of something, and then the mind and the thoughts completely take over. And when that happens, the truth has been tainted. In fact, you don't get to see truth. You know, one harsh reality, one harsh truth that took a while to soak in, especially at least for me, is that you never see truth or understand truth through thoughts. Right? Thoughts actually hide the truth. It's like closing the veil or closing the curtains once we're studying things by way of trying to figure them out in our minds. So we need to do the right preparatory work in order for the insights to happen and be genuine. So that's what we're doing here. So what's some of the preparatory work? Okay, well, let's do it, shall we? So some of the preparatory work is, First of all, our mind can't be so busy. It can be somewhat busy. It can be somewhat chaotic. It can go on some tangents, right? It can be a little bit restless, but it can't be so restless and so busy and so chaotic that we're unable to sense anything real. Like we're not able to sense the body, sense the breath, right? So we do have to start by just relaxing a little bit, getting comfortable in our seat, being comfortable where we are, at least being somewhat happy, like, happy to be here in this meditation. It's a good idea. I got to work on this mind. And sometimes if it's a particularly difficult day, I haven't had a particularly difficult day because I just woke up. But for some of you, it's the evening and you might have had a particularly difficult day. And if you have, then sometimes it helps to relax and feel a little better, to maybe think of something nice. Like, do you like the beach or the mountains? Think of what it feels like to be on a nice, relaxing holiday somewhere or somewhere in nature, just as a starting point for a moment. Or even better, something that can be considered that in in Buddhist circles is considered very wholesome, not showing off in an arrogant way, but just can you think of really good things that you have done, things that you're really proud of that are actually good, like wholesome things, like a donation you gave, you really helped out somebody in need. Or perhaps, something really special that happened in life, like getting to meet a great spiritual master. Or perhaps a spiritual experience that you feel great about and know it was good and helpful. In fact, it's very good to get used to when we do have to think, right? To be thinking in such ways. Or if the mind is so busy that we're not able to like just notice the body sitting and breathing in a comfortable way, if it feels too uncomfortable and forceful because our mind isn't ready for it yet, it's still too chaotic and busy, then we just need to try to think something better for a few moments until we're able to relax. One thing I like to think about sometimes, which can help you, is that feeling when you have a lot to do and then you get it all done and you just feel like I have no more responsibilities now. Like I did it and I can just relax. Like I don't have to think about anything for a while. Right? Just remembering what that feels like really does it for me. I get a big smile on my face and in my heart. It's like, the test is over, the class is over. Not a class with you guys, of course. I mean, back in university days, it was, oh my goodness, it's the end of the semester. I finished my exams, just that, right? Or if you had a lot to do, a lot of work, and it's like there's nothing left, you can just relax and then go to bed and everything's good. And it's that type of feeling. The removal of burden, which ultimately the path to liberation that I'm talking about in the end of suffering is removing the burden of the attachment to body and mind. So it is removing a burden as well. A burden we don't realize that we're keeping because we think this body and mind are valuable things, good things that are going to bring us happiness, when actually happiness of a higher order is something that transcends body and mind. So once we've calmed down enough, relaxed enough, settled in enough, but still plenty of thoughts, plenty of tangents, right? But just more comfortable in our own skin. Then we can investigate. We can sense that there's a body sitting here, isn't there? Right? It's breathing, isn't it? And notice when I said that the recommendation isn't to control the breath, but instead just to sense that it's there. And see if when the body is breathing out, you can just simply know that it is. Right? When the body is breathing in, you can simply know that it is. Anything more than simply knowing what the body is doing is putting the mind into a stupor or a dull space from too much trying. Is anybody able to notice that you're already doing that? That you're started putting your mind into a stupor, you're trying to concentrate? At no point did I say, okay, really try to concentrate, everybody, right? So you're following your own idea of what a practice is about, not the actual instructions from the teacher, right? I do recommend taking instruction with this practice. It's sort of like, deciding you're going to learn karate and then, you go to a karate class, but you don't listen to the teacher and you're like, I'm going to punch, I'm going to kick the bag, right? But without proper instruction, right? Or without listening to how to do it correctly. So another thing I didn't say was close your eyes. So I don't recommend closing your eyes because that does tend to either make you try too hard or get sleepy, right? But if you are able to follow my instructions with your eyes closed, that's fine too. But it's rare. Most people are better at this practice with their eyes open because we're looking for insight. We're not looking to get tired, right? A lot of people misunderstand that peace, feeling comfortable, it's something that only happens when I'm about to fall asleep, right? And we're actually looking to feel peaceful and comfortable in normal, everyday, waking, alert life, right? Not be just waiting to sleep or to get to something close to sleep. So there's a body. Can you know that there's a body sitting there and that it's breathing? And what's further is if there are little movements, like a scratch, an itch, a shift, a bend, the eyes move this way or that way. You don't have to notice all this stuff, but occasionally, are you able to notice that the body made a movement? Right? So I just woke up to the fact that my eyes went up to the side. Usually that happens when it goes to think. So the question here is, can you notice the body sitting, breathing out, breathing in? You don't have to do it continuously. The mind is allowed to think whatever it thinks. It's just, just comfortable enough, happy enough. And then, are you able to notice the odd time the eyes move this way or that way? When they go to the screen to look at me rather than paying attention to your own body breathing, it's paying attention to my body breathing. So when that type of thing happens, you become aware. Of course, another thing that happens is the mind goes off on a tangent and forgets about the practice, starts thinking of something else or analyzing the practice. But you can notice in those moments, There's no attention to the body sitting there and breathing. You didn't know if you were breathing out or breathing in. And you didn't know that the body was sitting here. You couldn't sense it or feel it sitting here. In those moments when you get caught up in thought forms, right? So you just become aware or wake up, right, to the fact that the mind has gotten caught, gotten lost, or strayed. You become aware of that. And the vital moment there is the moment that you become aware isn't when you think about it and say, oh yeah, look, I got lost. The vital moment is when you realize, oh yeah, there was no attention on the body or the breath. I got lost. I forgot. I forgot about, was the body breathing in or breathing out for a few moments there. Right? Those are the vital moments. In fact, those are the moments that we call mindfulness of mind. Some of the most important moments we can have. And like a crucial early step, which even later on in the practice, as your practice develops through the insights, that's still the same thing applies. It's still a very important aspect of the practice to keep waking up as you get lost in thought. Incidentally, thought can happen when you're not lost in it. Thoughts come up and you don't have to be lost in them. But it's when you get entangled in them, right, that we have to become aware of, which means basically you forgot that you were breathing in or forgot that you were breathing out or forgot there was a body sitting here. And like I said, if there are movements and shifts of the body, let's see if you can become aware of some of them. So how about a show of hands? Has anybody, without intending to, started to scratch or shift and then recognize that your body moved? Can I get a show of hands? When you lifted your hand just now, did you feel that you were lifting your hand? Right? Or do you just sort of notice after, oh, look at that, the hand popped up, right? So there's those things as well. That's great. So you might notice that there are different movements of the body that happen that we weren't aware we were going to do because we were either lost in thought or we were very busy trying to stay with our meditation object. And that's good, right? That's an important part of the practice, because when we see that the body moves without our attention on it or our desire to move, there was an intention to move, but we didn't see it. The mind was sort of operating incognito, right? It was operating on its own. And we were attending to something else, either the contents of our thoughts or attending to the body breathing. And then we weren't aware of a whole other process going on that decided, it was itchy, the hand decided to go up, scratch, right? Or there was a little pain or stiffness, a little adjustment, right? Or a movement, or we see something over there, we're being naughty and multitasking. And so we see a notification come on our phone, and then our head goes, to look at our phone or whatever it might be. Right. And then we wake up to the fact that the body is moving, right, in a way that we weren't intending to see. It's not the thing we were intending to see. When we get to see the things that we weren't intending to see, we have an opportunity for insight. We might see that the body just moved. I didn't move. Because I, quote unquote, even though that is a delusion as well, was busy doing something else. And then lo and behold, the body just went to do something that I had no awareness that it was going to do. We get to see that there isn't any controller. Right? We either get to see that the body isn't us, we might get to see that the mind isn't us, that the mind just ordered the body to go do something. We might actually see that. With us busy doing, whatever we thought was us, basically thoughts, doing something else. We get an opportunity for insight. But those insights can only happen when the mind is correctly and properly prepared for them to happen, which means there's a certain degree of feeling relaxed, and there's a certain degree of what's called, certain degree of mindfulness, where it only happens after we're able to observe a few things that the body is doing, that the mind is doing, as I was relaying and instructing, seeing when the attention is at me, let's say, instead of on your own body internally, body breathing, or when the attention goes into thoughts, strays into different thoughts. Right? When that happens, we're developing mindfulness. So we've developed a sense of relaxation, developing some mindfulness. And we're also developing what's called samadhi, which can be translated as a stable observer presence, which basically means a mind that is able to see different phenomena of body and mind without meddling with them, without interfering them, without fearing with them or trying to change them, without moving down to have a better look, but is just able to be aware and impartial. It's able to, a mind that separates it from self, that separates itself from whatever is arising. And it's just able to see these things as things that are seen or known. Observe them as things that are seen or known, not entangled in them. So with enough of a contentness or relaxation, with enough mindfulness, with enough samadhi or the stable observer momentum, then we can achieve insight. Who's caught up in thoughts? Remember, we're back on a Zoom call, paying our attention to the body, right? Great. So you wake up to that and realize, oh yeah, the mind drifted away. We get familiar with what that's like. In fact, the more that you're able to notice that phenomenon, the better. Because each time you notice that, it's a mindful moment, and we want more mindful moments. We need to develop those. Right? And also, the more that we see it, especially if we see it clearly, like we're woken up in the middle of it, whether I wake you up or you wake yourself up in the middle of it, right? You get more skilled at being able to notice it for the next time and the next time. The trick is to not do anything about it, right? To not hate it or try to fix it when the mind goes off. It's nothing to hate. You might find that if you pay attention at the nostril, you get sleepy and dull. That's common, not for everybody, but it's common. But instead, if you just pay attention to the body sitting, it's more alert. the sense that the body's breathing in or out may be just sort of the body as a whole, or just not even really knowing or identifying where you're noticing, but you just know that it's breathing in or out, like where the detail is in the knowing, rather than placing your mind somewhere in particular. You don't really place your mind anywhere in particular, other than other than knowing that the body's sitting or standing. So, for example, just to get the sense of this, if you, when you're standing, right, and somebody asked you, they're on the phone with you and they can't see you, and they say, "Are you sitting or are you standing right now?" Well, you might have been so busy in the conversation, you weren't really paying attention to your body. So then when the person asks the question, you just, you need a moment to check in and be like, "Oh yeah, standing," right? You weren't like, pay attention to the feet, right? Notice how the body posture is precisely, right? There's no details there. You just check in and say, yeah, the body is standing, right? So similarly, you sort of check in again. It's like, hang on, where's the body? Okay, yeah, it's here it is, it's sitting. It's a knowing rather than a focusing. Right? But that knowing is something that can only happen for a very short time, because then when you try to continuously know, then there's a forcing or a focusing that might happen. So what do we do then? Well, simply we become aware. So what happens is we can only know for a few moments usually. And then the knowing turns into controlling. And we become aware we're controlling. That's a mindful moment, mindful of the mind. The mind, the phenomenon now is controlling, right? Or focusing if it goes to a specific spot, right? For most of us, when we just know for a few moments, and then the mind strays, we don't know, right? The mind strays into thoughts, or maybe gets intrigued with the screen or listening to me, right? It loses attention of one's own body. So then we reset. We notice, okay, is the body sitting here? Yeah. If you're starting to feel a little bit strained or stressed, take a moment to feel comfortable and happy again. You can use thoughts for that. Or for some of you, maybe a real intentional breath or two that feels nice can help to relax. And then you come back to the exercise. Excuse me. In this practice, we relieve ourselves of the burden of trying to get anywhere. Because the only valuable thing, the most valuable thing we can do in our existence is know what the body is doing or what the mind is doing. So in order to be able to know what the body is doing and mind is doing, you have to let it do its stuff. You have to let it do what it does. You can't just be a controller, right? So there's no pressure here, because you in a sense want the mind to wander off into thought so that you can come to and be aware. You can get to be mindful, right? And then you want there to be a little controlling. So you can go, there's the controlling, right? You're just waking up and freeing yourselves of being the one who's forcing this, doing that, trying to get this result. Instead, just an observer, and eventually a stable and impartial observer. So what we're doing is we're practicing or training in being able to know and to recognize different phenomena that occur rather than being lost in them completely. We wake up to them, usually right in the middle of them. So there might be frustration for a little while, and then we're caught thinking about something. Wow, why is this like that? Or okay, is that this, that? And then we wake up, oh, mind's frustrated. Rather than trying to fix anything, we become the knower. When we allow the mind to be totally normal and natural, and then just follow up what happens with becoming aware that it has, we get another great opportunity for insight. Why is that? Because you'll start to notice, many of you have noticed many times, that when the mind is lost in thought or lost in listening or lost in looking, most of the time lost in thought, that you didn't decide to get lost in thought. That you thought you were going to pay attention to the body sitting and breathing. But then lo and behold, you wake up in the middle of a story. And how did I get here? Who did that? And then we start to get a sense of the truth of non-self, that there isn't any controller, there isn't anyone at the wheel. There was just phenomenon arising and passing. So the phenomenon that arose there is getting caught in a thought stream. No one decided to do that. Right? It happened all by itself. Occasionally, if we're mindful enough, if we have this stable observer, the knower presence developed, if we're relaxed and content enough, all the right causes are there, then instead of just being mindful that, oh, lost in thought again, oh, the mind drifted into thoughts, forgot about the body. Occasionally there's a moment, instead of being interested that in the phenomenon of being lost in thought or forgetting about the body, the mind wakes up to, who did that? Where was there a person? That was just a phenomenon, not a person. When a different feeling comes up and we have this mindfulness and samadhi, and so a feeling comes up, maybe a feeling of happy or joy or unhappy, confused, I want to be better, I'm not good enough, or whatever it could be. Maybe we're having lots of mindful moments and feeling very bright and beautiful and joyous, radiant, which is what happens when the mind is the stable observer and mindful, but allowing it to be normal and natural, not controlling, pushing, forcing. Then a feeling of happiness might come up, or a feeling of impatience or frustration or whatever it might be. And then it seems so clearly as something separate from the story and the thought and separate from the body, seen very clearly as something that just comes up all on its own or out of its own causes. Not because anybody said, okay, make happiness come up now. There's nobody that did that. The mind, there was a story, the mind went to it itself, then an emotion came up that was appropriate or not appropriate to the story. And they came up as two separate entities that were just all working on their own. This came up and disappeared, then the feeling comes up, and then it starts to fade away or sort of diffuse into the atmosphere. Just phenomena not a person. Or it might just be seen as something that comes and it wasn't there a moment ago, but there it is. And then it's there, and then it passes. And the insight will be that this is true with regards to all phenomena, because the mind becomes less interested in what it was and more interested in the mark or the characteristic that is inherent in all arising phenomena, that they pass away. And when the mind sees and understands these truths, it doesn't waver, struggle, or suffer with regards to these truths after a while. So all the things that make us suffer because we think they're going to last, at least for a few days, if we had the wisdom that understood that whatever arises isn't meddled with, the natural progression is that things just come and pass and come and pass. The body lasts a little longer, but it's always changing. Whatever body state is there now is completely changing in each moment. A little harder to see, but also the case, right? The body is moving towards dissolution and death. A little harder to see, but we see it after a few weeks and years as it ages. But feelings, very easy to see because their lifespan is very short, especially if we don't meddle with them. We just let things be as they are. They just pass through like the wind. How long does a particular thought last, right? Just a split second. Each word of the thought is gone after it's been thought. Right? There isn't any thought that lasts. We can circle around and have a new rotation of the same ideas, but it's a brand new rotation. Every word that passes is gone, right? Oh, tomorrow gone, I gone, want to gone, I have gone, ice cream gone. Feeling comes up, passes. Very short lifespan. And so it's the end of struggle then. Right? We, from a place of wisdom, we work and we act in the world and we make decisions and we have friends, but we're not relying on them for our happiness. We see that as silly, that there's no way the world can ultimately make us happy, just give us little excited or glad moments, relatively insignificant, and mostly not glad moments. Mostly the world brings us difficulty, especially as we get older and our friends, right? Everybody that we love eventually is apart from us, whether it's through death or through, they leave town or whatever it might be. Right? And eventually the thing we love the most, even though we don't necessarily admit it or realize it, this body and this mind, wanting them to be good, wanting them to be happy, and we're going to have to depart from them too. So the world isn't what can ultimately bring us happiness. Those are more less mature, let's say, types of happiness that seeking through the world. Right? There's far greater happiness in understanding, knowledge, true wisdom, and the insights are what lead us there. So we relax, we pay attention to the breath, we pay attention to the body, and we might become mindful of this and that as the mind strays, as the body does whatever it does, without us being the controller or navigator. If our stable observer momentum is strong, then when we pay attention or we sense the body sitting, we might clearly sense it as just a physical body, not us. That there isn't a sense of self being derived from the body that's sitting and breathing. We can sense that it's sitting there and breathing on its own, that the awareness or the knowing that the body is sitting and breathing is not the body, right? But is that which is knowing the body is sitting. There's a slight distinction, a separation between the thing that is knowing and the thing that is known. At first, they feel like they're entangled when we're not paying attention and we don't have a stable observer or knowing presence. And when there is a knowing presence, we can sense them clearly as distinct things. And then even feelings as they come and go can be seen as not what is observing them. This is another way that we can gain insight into the truth that we are not the body, we are not the feelings, the non-selfness of the body, the non-selfness of the feelings. One thing that we learn is that anything that there is a little distance from, that is set, that there's a separation from, isn't you. The computer or device you're watching me on clearly isn't you, right? Because it's really far away. Right? There might be something a little closer, a coffee cup or a table. That's not you either, right? It's just a physical mass. It's obvious that it isn't you because there's no entanglement with it. Consciousness is separate from it. Similarly, as you continue to practice correctly, the body is seen as just a physical mass. Consciousness is not entangled in it. The feelings are not physical masses. They're mental things. They're things regarding mentality, the mind or the heart, but they aren't the consciousness observing them, right? The consciousness disentangles itself from feelings and sees them as passing things. And even consciousness itself shows itself as having that non-self characteristic, cannot be controlled. One moment you're aware, the next moment it's busy thinking, and no one decided to do any of that. It does it all by itself. So in insight meditation, we develop the mind to be aware, alert, seeing physical and mental phenomena, and slowly but surely getting of the quality where it isn't meddling with physical and mental phenomena, but just able to see the arising and falling of them. And soon insight begins. If you would like to join my Wednesday insight classes at 8 p.m., there are 5 of the 6 of them left, and you get a recording for the one that you missed, because we're all really entrenched in the practice right now. If you'd like to continue with it and you haven't signed up, you can email me, jesskaufman@hotmail.com. Thank you, everybody, for joining me in my morning meditation.
Thank you so much, Jess, for leading such a beautiful practice. I'm ready for a retreat day. Anybody else? That felt like a great start to a day that should be keeping going and not going to bed. So we'll see how the evening ahead goes. But I do recommend, if anyone's not part of Jess's Insights